Look guys, this is a vintage game between Mikhail Tal when he was just 15 years old. He started with d4 and Zeids replied with c6, clearing the way for the queen. Now it's Tal's turn. Let's see what he plays. I've seen this video. He plays c4. Just as in Queen's Gambit, we push the two pawns at c4 and d4. Now it's Teodors Zeid's turn. He pushes pawn to d5. But as we all know, it is not wise to take this pawn because then it will be attacked by the light colored bishop of Tal. But Tal focuses on development. He develops kingside knight to f3. Now it's Zeid's turn. It's Zeids to move. He develops his kingside knight to f6, attacking the center. Now it's Tal's turn. Let's see what he plays. He develops the queenside knight to c3. Now it's Teodors' turn. He takes this pawn of Tal, which was at c4. Now I think he will push his king's pawn to e4. Yeah, he does that, just that. Now Zeid's knight cannot take this pawn because it is defended by queenside pawn of Tal. So Zeid's plays pawn to b5, supporting this pawn at c4. So now Tal cannot take it with bishop, with his light colored bishop. So he also attacks his piece, which is kingside knight. He pushes king's pawn to e5. Now his kingside knight is under attack, Zeids, so he will defend it naturally. So he pushes knight to d5, asking for knight exchange from Tal. But I think Tal won't take because it is just equal. Game will be equal. So he pushes this pawn in front of the rook. He pushes this pawn to a4. Now it is Tal's turn. Let's see what he plays. He takes Tal's knight by coming to c3. So naturally, Tal will take this knight with his pawn. Tal plays c3. So okay, it is very sweet pawn chain of Tal at the center. Now he pushes pawn to a6. Zeids pushes pawn to a6. Now it's Tal's turn. He develops his bishop to e2. Now it's Zeid's turn. It's Zeids to play. He develops his bishop to b7. Now Tal to play. Tal takes his knight to kingside knight to g5. It is yet not attacked by anything, but it will be attacked. Yeah, it is attacked by Zeids, who takes his pawn to h6. Now Tal has to defend this knight, which it definitely will. He takes it to a new position, say e4. Earlier it was at, I feel, f3. Whatever. So now it's Teodors to play. He pushes his king pawn to e6. Now Tal takes his bishop to a3, asking for bishop exchange, dark colored bishop exchange. If he doesn't take, then he will lose his right to castle. So he takes this bishop. So Tal has to recapture the black's bishop, Zeid's bishop. So he will take it with his rook. Because I have seen this game, yeah, that is exactly what it does. Now I think if he takes his knight to, though he castles, he doesn't play any move of knight, taking it in front of the queen, attacking the bishop, light colored bishop, but he castles. Otherwise, I feel he would have taken his bishop. So Tal also castles. Now Zeids develops his knight to d7 in front of the queen. Now Tal opens the file of his rook, for his rook, inside rook, by pushing his pawn to f4, supporting his pawn at e5, also opening the path of kingside rook. So Zeids develops his queen to e7, attacking Tal's knight, which is at a3. So naturally Tal has to defend this rook. So Tal takes his rook back to a1. Now Zeids takes his knight to b6. Attacking the pawn at a4. Now this is attacked twice. If he takes this pawn and takes it with the rook, the knight will take his rook. Rook has got more points. So he leaves the defense of that pawn. So Zeids can easily now take this pawn of Tal. He takes it with his knight. He cannot take it because his rook is at stake. Rook has 5 points, knight has 3. So he will plan something else to attack on the king side. So he pushes his pawn to f5, which is defended by the rook. So he takes his pawn and attacks his knight. Zeids take the free pawn offered and also attacks his knight. But king side rook of Tal can easily take this pawn. But no, he takes his knight, Tal takes his knight to f6. Now this can easily be taken by Z's pawn at g7. But he doesn't, because then queen will come over and give the check. So he shifts his king to h8. Now if Z's take with the queen will be taken by the pawn. So now he takes this pawn with his rook. Tal takes his Z's pawn with his rook. Still this knight cannot be taken by the pawn, because then the queen will be taking the pawn at h6 and giving the check. And it will be very great attack launched. So Zeids brings his rook to d8. So now it's Tal to move. Let's see what he plays. He brings over his other rook over by the side of the king to f1, creating a battery of the rooks. So bishop attacks this rook. Bishop goes to c8 and attacks the rook at f5. The rook has to be defended. Rook is an important piece which is participating at present on the king side attack on Zeids. So Tal takes his rook promptly to h5. Now still this knight cannot be taken, because it will launch a fierce attack on the black's king. So Zeids takes his queen over to f8 to defend this pawn at g7. Actually this a6 is supported twice. Now he makes his rook left, Tal makes his rook left and takes it to f4. Now it is Zeids to move. Zeids take Tal's pawn at c3, attacking Tal's light colored bishop. But Tal is not disturbed. He creates battery along the h5 by taking his rook to h4. Sorry. Now Z's knight is undefended, so he thinks why not take another bishop. He's already taken a couple of pawns. Now he takes the bishop also of Tal. But Tal is not disturbed. I think now he can attack the pawn at h, but first he has to save his check, which he promptly does by moving his king to f2. Now Zeids takes his pawn and attacks Tal's rook by coming to g5. But first Tal will give a check by taking Z's pawn, which is at h6, right? This is check. Now he can only move, Zeids can only move to this, either take it with his queen, rook with his queen, or move his king to g7. So he gives up his queen by taking the rook at h6. Now Tal will take his queen, which is at h6, naturally, and give a check. Right. That's what it does. It is check to the black's king, which is at h8. It's soon going to be trapped, because to save his check he will definitely move to g7, which it does. Now Tal takes this pawn, which is at h5, and at the same time defending the rook and the knight. That's what it does. Now it is again check to the king, black's king. Now it's going to be trapped. It's going to be checkmated soon, because such is the attacking position that it is very difficult to survive. Now you can only move to f8, which it does. Now if the queen goes to g8, he will escape to e7. The king will escape to e7, which is of no use. So the rook gives a check, which is understandable. Rook goes to h8, and in this position Zeids resigned, because it is soon going to be trapped. It can only move to this position, which is e7, and then knight will leave his position and give a discovered check by the queen, and soon it will be trapped. So it was pointless to play beyond this. I hope you enjoyed this game, guys. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and please comment also. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.